And John Amato is with us, the founder and editor of Crooks and Liars, author of Over the Cliff, How Obama's Election Drove the American Right Insane. The website, crooksandliars.com, of course. Hey, John, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tom, what's happening, my friend?
Good to hear. We're just carrying on. I was just pointing out that Dave Bratt is a college professor because John Allison gave a $500,000 gift to his university to have him teach Ayn Rand studies and Tea Party philosophy. So he's kind of a creature of that. And then John Allison went on, left BT&T Bank after George Bush gave it $3.1 billion in the bailout, moved on to become the head of the former Charles Koch Foundation, the Cato Institute, which has given over $22 million in funding to right-wing talk radio hosts, according to Politico, including Laura Ingraham and Mark Levin, who Mark Levin taking $757,000, who have been taking credit for Dave Bratt's victory because they say that they've been carpet bombing the airwaves with, kick out Eric Cantor. But anyhow,
I mean, as we're now finding out, he's a bought and paid for candidate and right wing. It reminds me of what's his name, Armstrong. Remember the black
Armstrong Williams, yeah.
That was being paid by the Bush administration to push their No Child Left Behind.
Yeah, and that was a scandal because it was government money. I mean, this right. is now private money, so this is just like, this article came out in Politico about 4 weeks ago. In fact, he quoted me in it. He called me up and he said, "Okay, I found that tens of millions of dollars are being handed basically to these right-wing talk show hosts to subsidize them. Are you getting any money from George Soros?" And I said, "No, I'm getting no money from George Soros. I'm getting no money from any right-wing, left-wing think tank. If they want to talk to me, I'm here. But I would want to disclose it, but I've got nothing." So
it's just and all over the news last night and today is how much Brady spent like $5. He bought he bought one flyer. He had one vote for me sticker. They're making it seem like no money was spent, and what's being reported is much more money was spent on this race than almost a Senate race.
Yeah. Well, almost $5 million spent by Eric Cantor. The media narrative, of course, is that Dave Bratt spent $200,000 and that Eric Cantor spent $150,000 just in steakhouses, whining and dining lobbyists and other politicians that he wanted to control during this period of time. And that's a nice narrative, but it overlooks the influence of dark money completely. But I wanted to talk with you. Actually, you've done some brilliant writing about right-wing extremism, and yesterday the big story, of course, was Amanda Miller and what was her husband's name? Jordan? Jason? Jared Miller. Killing these two Las Vegas police officers, and then killing the guy in the mall, and then Alex Jones saying this is a false flag conspiracy, and just all this stuff, and I'm just curious your take on what happened there. What are we seeing happening in America, and is there some kind of a connection between these two things, between the Dave Bratt phenomenon and the rise of anti-government hatred that, at least in the hands of some over-the-top people, turns into cop killing?
Well, absolutely. When David and I wrote our book, we predicted, and we went on your show and so many shows and talked about how the incidence of violence was going to exponentially increase. And it was going to be, tragic and horrible because, look, when Clinton came into office, the whole black helicopter conspiracy theory, that underground network of creeps and misfits and militia movements that really inspired them, and it became a big paying money industry. And Alex Jones profited big time on that whole, Clinton in the one world.
Sure. As did Glenn Beck.
Theories. Yeah, and so, but my take on it, and Dave would concur, is that these people that are very anti-government, they see everything as an affront to their civil rights. What happens is when there's a Republican in office, right, at the president, because they're very authoritarian, it sort of it quelches their most radical, violent tendencies a little bit enough so that the lid doesn't blow off. Yeah. And when a Democrat, and you make that especially an African-American Democrat, is now the president There's only so long that the bottle, the cork will stay in the bottle, and all these tendencies and these racist and homophobic and anti-Semitic tendencies, the white nationalist and the Christian, evangelical sort of wild strain, just has nowhere to go except to burst.
Yeah.
And immediately when Obama was in office, what did we find? Dr. Tiller was murdered by an abortion nut, and who was always listening to talk radio. And the fact is that now, as we see it, it's like almost like every other day there's a new shooting, whether it's a school shooting, whether it's people...
Well, it's been once a week since Sandy Hook, school shootings.
Yes.
74 of them.
Look what just happened in Georgia, right? A man over there, heavily armed, decided he was going into the courthouse and really shooting it up.
Right.
And there's so many of these incidents.
And because Georgia had just passed this super ultra liberal anti-carry law, I use the word liberal as advisedly, because they had just passed this open carry law. This guy could show up at the courthouse with all this weaponry, and the police couldn't stop him until he took the first shot.
It's bizarre. It's really crazy. I mean, and look, and we all know that law enforcement hates these laws. I mean, they were against that whole Georgia law because they know who was the first people at risk. It's
cops. Cop killings are up 55% now since the election of Obama.
Absolutely. And when that first DHS report came out, it's from the Michigan Highway Patrol, which talked about right-wing extremism. When we look at the talk show hosts and the Fox News sort of effect on things in the country, they flipped out and attacked, the Obama administration when actually it was done under the Bush administration. So much so that they pulled the whole report.
Yeah.
And
it's just they're just reforming that group right now. I saw a post over on one of the right-wing websites that said, the White House was built with slave labor and now one is living in it, ? Exclamation mark. That's this perspective. What's this black man doing in the White House? It's amazing. John, thank you.